Altinya, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know where everybody is, but I'll be content. Welcome back and thanks for your time. Looks like I'm having internet issues, so if I drop off abruptly, that's why. Let me actually switch to mobile data. Okay. Thank you guys. Thanks for joining. So just to talk about the current issues in the Gambia and address some of the burning issues, none more so than the current OIC summit that the Gambia is hosting. Seen some discussions online that I don't know how to even describe them. But we'll get into all of that. 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒏𝒏𝒆𝒍, you can share the video as well. Let's expand the discussion. So give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear me. I know I've been having phone issues and it's Malcolm Moy, let me know before I jump into it, and I'll be talking to myself. Waiting for reactions to confirm that you guys can hear me. Okay, thank you, 𝒂𝒊𝒏. Okay, so diving into it, we're all set to go. Those who can join and can watch it later too, so that's why I don't like wasting time. Let me turn down Jaliba. So basically, we're all hyped up about the OIC summit because after the United Nations, this is the largest body of intergovernmental organizations that we have. And based on that, it is a huge deal, not just for the Gambia, but for the entire Muslim fraternity across the world. This event is hosted every 3 years, usually every 3 years, because there was longer intervals where it was not held for 5 years due to certain circumstances. But let's just say it's held every 3 years. So to understand where we are and why there's so much hype about this issue, with some people saying, oh, let's be quiet until the event is over, then we can talk about it. Yeah, which I don't subscribe to, and I will not, for my own personal reasons. Somebody doesn't want to talk about it, that's up to them. So basically in 2013, there was an event in Egypt where the OIC was held that year. And when Yahya Jammeh came back, you can check the Point newspaper's edition. I think it was February 2013. when Yahya Jammeh came, he did say that the Gambia was going to host the OIC in 2019. So according to him, the Gambia made the bid to host the OIC summit. And because of the Malaysian Prime Minister requesting that Malaysia should host it because he is about to resign from the presidency, or his term is about to end, and he would like for one of his legacies to be that he hosted the Islamic Ummah in Malaysia to the Islamic conference. So that's why the Gambia yielded back then. So when that was said, that the Gambia would host it in 2019, there was a lot of hype, and that led to the construction of the 𝒂𝒊𝒏 Conference Center, which, out of all the criticisms you're seeing on social media, nobody is saying that 𝒂𝒊𝒏 Conference Center is inadequate, it is, an eyesore. Nobody is saying that. Everybody is glad, we're happy we have that conference center. It is of global standards, and we're all happy about it. Nobody is criticizing that. Nobody is saying anything against it, because we are all proud of it. As Gambians, we should all be proud of it. We are the first to enjoy it, actually, when we have all those different conferences taking place there. It's up to standard. So that aside, all that hype since 2013 that Gambia would host this event in 2019, that's a complete 6-year timeline where we could put everything in place that was needed for a successful conference to take place. But we all know that was not possible. 2019, it could not be held in the Gambia because we were unprepared. Saudi Arabia stepped in because they were ready to go, and they hosted the event. That's what happened in 2019. So, OIC, we built a secretariat, we built a conference center, and then we keep asking, especially us in the opposition, what happened to the OIC, the much hyped OIC, because we were not ready. And then it went to Saudi Arabia. But that's not the first time. According to Jammeh, in 2013, when he gave that interview, the Gambia was supposed to host it in 2003. Because in 2000, it was held in Doha, and Gambia was the vice chair in Doha at that time. So which means being the vice chair, you get elevated to the chairmanship the next session, and being the chair, it will be hosted in your country. So that was in 2003, but that was when Mahathir Mohamad of Malaysia said he wanted to host it because the next opportunity he would not be president, and he wanted this to be part of his legacy, according to Jammeh. So he yielded because Mr. Mohamad was a friend to Africa and, all whatnot. So after Malaysia hosted it in 2003, it was supposed to be the Gambia's turn to host it. Because, it takes turns. We kind of yielded to Malaysia, so now it has to come back to us for us to host it. That's what, according to Jammeh, was the plan. But in his own statement, what he wrote, or what he told the newspapers or reporters at the airport at the time was, after Malaysia, the Gambia was supposed to host it. But our neighbor went on a rampage. He was talking about Senegal, between him and Abdoulaye Wade. They went on a rampage, on an outrageous campaign, saying the Gambia has no airport, we have no electricity, and we have no roads. If you want to confirm that, go to the Point newspaper, search their archives, and look for February 11, 2013 edition. That information is in there, that interview. I think one of the online platforms actually cited or quoted Jammeh saying that too. That's where the source is. That's where I got it from. But according to Jammeh, that's what Senegal's complaint was. Oh, Gambia is not ready. They have no roads. They have no electricity. They have no airport. But all those things are true today. I get it. This is a big event. Like I said at the beginning, OIC is the biggest conference of intergovernmental organizations after the United Nations. Is the biggest because, it's the Islamic Ummah entirely. So even in countries where the majority is not Muslim, but they have a substantial Islamic representation, they become members. So over the years, you will see their numbers were increasing, from 43 members to 44 members to 57 members now. And it's going to keep growing as Islam grows and its influence reaches further and further. We're going to have more member states. But everything that Senegal was complaining about, and Jammeh didn't like it, it's true. But to Jammeh's credit, we could say that in 2006, Gambia successfully hosted another big event, which was the OAU or AU Summit in 2006. We will get into that as well. So because of those lies, Senegal ended up hosting the next summit. And that was in 2008. That was the second time Senegal hosted it, because they already hosted it in 1991 as well. So they are not new to it, even though the membership was a little smaller back then, but they hosted it in 1991. So every complaint that Senegal had against the Gambia, oh, let us host it because the Gambia, you know, problem A, B, and C is there. So they ended up hosting it. So Jammeh held the AU Summit in the Gambia in 2006. And we can say by all measures that was a successful one. And here's the problem with that. When Jammeh was hosting that in 2006, not specifically me, but there were Gambian activists online who were actually chiding the African Union, saying they should not converge on the Gambia to host that event because of Jammeh's track record. We all agree. Jammeh was a tyrant. In fact, in 2006 was when Chief Ibrahim Mane disappeared, because leading up to the coming of the African heads of state, he republished an article. He didn't even write it. He just republished it in the Observer. That led to his arrest and subsequent disappearance. Nobody knows where. Nobody knows where he is right now. Where they killed him, where they buried him. According to 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒏𝒄𝒏, he went the back way. Nobody knows to which country. But just to, you know, give a summary. In 2006, Gambians were saying the AU should not be hosted in the Gambia because of Jammeh's track record. And looking back, we can say, you know, there's a justification for that. The African Center for Human Rights and Democracy actually was headquartered in the Gambia during Jawara's days, but they ended up doing what? Because of Jammeh's track record, not being comfortable having that place hosted in the Gambia anymore. The headquarters of Africa's democratic institution being hosted in a country where there was no democracy. But all in all, it was a success. But that didn't stop people from complaining about it, saying Jammeh was a tyrant, he was a dictator. Why are African leaders encouraging him by converging in the Gambia? But he held a successful Congress or summit in 2006. So when that was happening and we were criticizing, or people were criticizing the Jammeh government then for its track record, why were they not called unpatriotic? These are concerns. In other countries, what we see is when world leaders are gathering, for example, at the United Nations General Assembly, every single year at the General Assembly, multiple countries that are members of the UN come there to host demonstrations. We saw Macky Sall being chased around in New York, what is it, last year or the year before, just to bring attention to the plight of people in that country. When Jammeh used to come, that was the case as well. When they come to the United Nations, nobody online is calling for Gambians to come out and demonstrate at the 𝒂𝒊𝒏 Conference Center because, you know, we are not happy with the Barrow government. Nobody is calling for that. In fact, we will condemn it because things are not at such a point that we need to embarrass our country in front of the whole world. Nobody is saying that. We're just being online, talking about the stuff that we think is inadequate for the Gambia, which, if not addressed, is going to lead to a national embarrassment for all of us. And then everybody's like, oh, you know, let's be patriotic and just support the OIC. How are we supporting the OIC? In what way? When the dignitaries arrive, people will be at the airport, welcoming them with drumming, dancing, showing Gambian culture. They will line the streets, waving at them, cheering them on, making them feel welcome. That's all we can do as citizens. But in the background, there are things that needed to be addressed that are not addressed. We can talk about those. And, you know, Iran is not going to rely on me being on social media talking about what the Gambia didn't do to tell their president, oh, don't come to Gambia because Nata said on social media. They don't even know that we exist. These are discussions we need to have as a country because there are wider implications which we will get into. So since then, the Gambia wanted to host it way back, like I said, but they yielded to Malaysia in 2003. So that means we had the intention of doing it. And we knew we needed to boost our infrastructure from then up to the time of hosting it. And then the next one, Senegal bad-mouthed us, according to Jammeh, so Senegal hosted it. That means we had the opportunity to also build our infrastructure before we bid again. But in 2013, we made the bid, and it was agreed the Gambia should host the 2019 conference. That gave us 6 years to put everything in place. Obviously, change happened, but government is a continuous business. If Jammeh started building roads, Barrow can complete them before the summit. If he started building a conference center, Barrow can complete it before the summit. So we had 6 years. Don't say there was a change of government. It was a peaceful change of government. There was nothing to stop it. Maybe the transition was stalled for a month while Jammeh was being belligerent, but that shouldn't lead to anything being postponed, because we already know the Gambia is on file to host the 2019 OIC summit. But we were not ready when 2019 came, so it was deferred. Saudi Arabia took over. And then that means the next one was to help us prepare in time so that we can be able to get ourselves ready for the next summit, which is 2024. So between 2019 and 2024, what is that? Another 5 years? So from 2013 to now, let's just say combined total of over 10 years for us to get ready to host the Islamic World, 57 countries and their representatives, to host them in the Gambia to a successful conference. And now you tell me whether we have succeeded in doing that or not. So essentially what we're doing is giving mediocre performance by our government a free pass by telling people, oh, let's not talk about it until the conference is over. What's the point of that? The same thing happened with the Independence Stadium. It was dilapidated. It was completely not even fit for a Nawatan that will bring huge crowds because it was unsafe. And then CAF ruled that, oh, the stadium is not fit for hosting this conference or this tournament. So what happened? We lost that bid. And during the time we were talking about it, we could have kept quiet until CAF did all their assessments and everything. But we were talking about it then. Was that not patriotic? And what happened? National embarrassment. We couldn't host the African Cup of Nations. Not even a single match. Effectively. And since that has, you know, come and gone, are we talking about the stadium and what we need to do for the future? Because the Gambia is still part of Africa. The African Cup of Nations will keep taking place. And if we qualify at some point, we would want to host it. What are we doing about it? Absolutely nothing. And nobody's even talking about it. They want us to do the same with this OIC conference. We are part of the Islamic Ummah. Nobody has been part of the OIC and get kicked out. It's just a representation of Muslim leaders or Muslim heads of state and their constituents having an organization where they can talk about the plights of Muslims around the world. So as long as there are Muslims in the Gambia, unless there's anything unforeseen taking place in the future, it's not going to be like, okay, Gambia is no longer part of the OIC. So there's potential for us to host it again. Senegal did it twice in a short space of time. So what is wrong with us saying this is inadequate, that's inadequate, that's inadequate, so that they can address it? But that is not happening. So we kind of let go of that stadium discussion after the African Cup of Nations. So every argument that we made online was geared towards saying that the Gambia was unprepared to host the 15th summit of the OIC. Basically saying we don't have the infrastructure to successfully host it. The only thing we have is the venue, which is the 𝒂𝒊𝒏 Conference Center. And nobody is criticizing that because it's up to standard. You know, you can hold any conference there. The PA system is perfect, the lighting is perfect, the space is big enough. So nobody is criticizing that. As far as that is concerned, that's an A+. So we don't have any issue with that. But everything else leading to that venue is inadequate. Whether you're talking about roads, like Yahya Jammeh said, Senegal was bad-mouthing us that we don't have any roads, we don't have any airport, which today stands to be true. The roads are not there, the hotels to accommodate these people are not there. And people think hotels are just hotels that you can stay in. We are hosting people that have a global significance when it comes to global geopolitics. They don't just stay in any kind of hotel. There are certain standards that need to be met. That's what we're talking about, which is why Balo was hyping the Radisson Blue. You know, there are executive suites and, what is it? One for monarchs, I guess. I don't know. But all that is unreliable. Where is our energy supply? NAWEC. We'll get into that. So instead of us collectively being, you know, on the edge of our seats that we don't get embarrassed by this event not going according to plan, we're here trying to censor each other about what we can say or cannot say, as if that matters to the people who are coming to the country. It's just ridiculous. So we have this silly notion that if we bury our heads in the sand, these problems will just, pretend as if they don't exist. Nobody else is going to see them as long as Gambians don't talk about them. That is silly, to say the least, and it's hypocritical. So basically what people are telling us is, let's just come as these visitors. They don't know any better. So when they are coming to the Gambia, we can just pretend like everything is fine. We are all in solidarity for the visiting heads of state. It doesn't matter what is inadequate. We're not going to point it out until they leave, so that we will, host a successful conference, as if those people are blind or they have no intelligence to decipher for themselves what they need and what is, being given by the Gambia. It's kind of like, boys will do. Have 2 wives at home and then, get a 𝒕𝒉𝒂𝒏 girlfriend, take them to your home, and then end up telling them, oh, your 2 wives are your sisters and your kids are your nieces and nephews, just so you can get from them what you want. And then you're telling your wives and kids, don't call me husband, don't call me dad. Just pretend like I'm not. That's not even Islamic. We're talking about an Islamic conference where the plight of Muslims, so why should Muslims not act like Muslims? If you don't want to talk about it, fine, but don't tell people don't talk about it so that the visitors would not see the ugly side of what is going on. Before this conference, I know Ismail Assise came out and talking about the Gambia government sponsored this 100%, which he retracted according to some other publications. He did say that, oh yeah, it was not 100%. All towards commercializing the citizens, just to give credit to the Barrow government. But we know the Gulf countries, the sultans and the Arab countries, the rich countries in the Muslim world, they went out of their way to make sure that when the conference is held in the Gambia, it's a successful one, that the world's eyes will be rained on the Gambia, because especially now with what is happening in Gaza and, across other parts of the world where Muslims are suffering, this is the conference hosted in a country that actually took a case against Myanmar for the fate of the Rohingya Muslims. So here they are hosting a conference in that country. The world's eyes are going to be rained on that country. So they made the effort to donate money to us or give us loans at no interest so that we can get ourselves prepared. 10 years in the making, we're falling short of that. And when you want to talk about it, they say, oh, let's be patriotic. If that is what it takes to be patriotic, I'm not going to be patriotic, because we're going to talk about it. It's inadequate completely. So like I said, no one is complaining about this Adauda conference center because it's up to standard. Everybody accepts that. The lighting is good, the PA system is good, the location is good, access and, providing security, all of that is fine. Nobody is complaining about that. But with all this money pumped in now, look at the roads leading to it. Look at the airport. All they concentrated on is building the VVIP. I don't know where in the world they say such a thing. Very, very important person. That sounds like something Barrow would say. It's a big, big politician. It's a very, very important person. So basically, the people that are telling us to keep quiet, I have a feeling like it's a ploy. My people are in government, or my friends are in government, or, so don't be saying anything about them. And you are jealous. That's one thing I don't get. Why is it that Gambian people keep saying, when you criticize the government, that you are jealous? It's not a personal property. It's for everybody. I am supposed to be one of the people receiving benefits from the actions of my government. If I'm not receiving that, me complaining is not because I'm jealous. It's because I'm deprived. It's that simple. Deprived of my rights, not my entitlements or whatever. If we don't have good communication infrastructure and my business is entirely internet-based, what am I getting from my business? Nothing. That's not the government giving me something, or I'm jealous that Gamtel has, perfect Wi-Fi at its managing director's home. That is not the problem. The problem is that it is being inadequate. So what are we seeing unfold in the Gambia is basically more optics to enhance the image of the government and less logistics. There is absolutely no logistics taken into consideration when they were organizing this, or very little logistics. All they care about was security, that is providing bodies to provide, personnel security to the visiting dignitaries. Nothing else mattered to them. So that tells you that they do not have the understanding of the magnitude of what they were about to host. Like I said, the Islamic world comprises of key and important players on the global geopolitical stage. So if the Muslim world, one can say, is probably the most strategic in terms of geopolitics of the world, if it is not the most, it's one of the most strategically positioned, because global interests, especially when it comes to oil, is all in Muslim lands. When they get that and trying to get it over to the other side of the world, it travels through areas around, the Somalia region, the Saudi region, the Yemen region, all Muslim territories. So any disruption in that is going to lead to global implications. So strategically speaking, from a geopolitics perspective, the Muslim world is situated very strategically, if not the most strategic, to the global economy. So that factors into what we as Gambians are going to play host to. So if the most strategically important regions of the world, such as Iran, everybody knows Iran is a strategically important geopolitically in terms of global affairs. Places like Turkey, Saudi Arabia, all of these Gulf states, Egypt, for example, in Africa, Egypt, Nigeria is also a member of the OIC, Pakistan. All these countries are strategically important when it comes to geopolitics. But for right now, let's just say for right now, Iran is probably the most strategically important based on the events that are going on in the world. So the leaders of these countries, they are connected to global events. Every millisecond counts. They cannot lose a millisecond of what is happening around the world. That means they have to be in constant contact with their state, with their intelligence agencies, with everybody on what is unfolding and how they need to respond to it. They are constantly on that. Exactly, MB, it's a photo session. It's just for optics. They have no substance behind it. They don't understand the implications of what is going on. So leaders like the leaders of Iran wants to know exactly what is happening the minute it happens. Because if he is absent and then something happens between, Iranian forces and, Israeli forces somewhere, and then as soon as he gets off the plane, the journalists are asking him, what are you going to do? What's he going to say? So they need constant contact with their agencies in order to be able to stay on top of things. So that also factors into what their considerations are when they go to any destination. So the decisions they take, they have immediate global ramifications. So they cannot be disconnected even for a second away from global events. So time to them is not a frivolous thing. Basically, every second counts as far as they are concerned. So let's say, for example, in the Gambia, we saw the head of the OIC secretariat saying the guests will be hosted in Senegal in their hotels. Why? Because the Gambia doesn't have parking spaces for the planes, basically ramps where the planes can wait for them. These people don't come on a plane, get dropped off, and the plane goes back and comes and gets them. The plane stays where it is until they're done. They get back on it and go. So if they cannot park in the Gambia, that means they go park in Senegal. Here's the problem with that. You're going to a conference. The conference venue is a plane's ride from your residence. You're speaking at least 45 minutes plane ride. So you have to drive from your hotel to the airport to get on a plane that probably could take you 25, 30 minutes. You get on that plane and fly to your destination and drive from the airport to the actual meeting ground. You're talking about at least an hour and a half to 2 hours just to travel to your meeting venue. What's the point of that? You're wasting 2 hours one way and then 2 hours another way. That's 4 hours out of your 24-hour day. These leaders will consider that. Why am I spending this much time on a plane when I could be doing something productive? What access do they have when they are traveling on their planes? So it is not logistically feasible for them to be in one country and then the meeting venue is in a different country. Granted, Gambia and Senegal, basically you can say they're the same country geographically because they're inside of each other. But the ideal thing would be you come into a meeting. Look at all the presidents who come to the UN Assembly. They all stay in New York, in hotels around that area, so that they can easily go. So why would you fly all the way to America, come and stay in, say, for example, I don't know, Florida, and then when it's time for the UN conference, you take a flight and go to New York? It doesn't make any sense. These people see that as a waste of time, and they are not going to buy it. So we see leaders like the leader of Iran not coming. Granted, there are other events around the world that need their attention too. So some of them didn't come because of that. Like, Turkey, there are events unfolding in that area also that are not coming. So they focus entirely on the VVIP lounge in the airport and did not consider the fact that Mohammed bin Salman, when he travels, his plane waits for him. The Iranian president, when he travels, his plane waits for him. All these things are studies that need to be taken so that when they come to the Gambia, they don't need to be waiting at the airport for their plane to arrive and pick them up and go. It's not a taxi for them, it's their personal property. So when they get there, it waits. When they're ready, they get on it and go home. So while those people are waiting, they don't have any access to their planes. That's one aspect of it. So the lodging in Senegal was an inconvenience to start with. We had to talk about that. This is why it is a problem. When you have an airport, it's not just a bus stop where, oh, the bus comes, get on and go. Sometimes there's a necessity for it, for the plane to be stationed where the leader is until they are ready and go. Why do you think the Gambia does not host global leaders? African leaders like Mbalo and, what's it called? Madabio and all that, they can come because they are familiar. It's Africa, they can adjust to it. Like when I live here, I wouldn't say, oh, I'm living in America, everything is okay. And then when I go, I'm not going to go back to my village and sleep on a pajas. I will, because I'm used to it. I understand it. I'm not going to make a fuss about it. So even Barrow in his press conference, he talked about proximity. I did make a post that he had a problem with words that have X in them. Proximity, I can't even say how he said it. But he saw that there is a need for that. Like they want the delegates to be around the meeting center so that for security purposes, they can have that proximity, that it would not be too difficult to provide them with security. And when they say security, that's the only thing they're thinking about. Like we need soldiers, we need police and uniformed men to provide them with security. That's what they're talking about. So that's one aspect of it. The proximity is not there, so that will lead to a lot of people canceling. Like, I don't want to spend 2 hours just to get a meeting and then, come home and then do it again the next day because this is a 2-day conference. So I'd rather just send some junior officer who can do that while I attend to other things and they can give me updated. The other thing is internet. So for leaders like the Iranian leader, for example, needing to stay constantly in touch and updated about what is happening in his country, he needs a lot of internet data. Number one. Number two, it needs to be secure. That's one reason why I asked, does the Gambian state or state house have secure landlines where the president talks to other world leaders? We might not think the Gambia is so important that, anybody will be snooping in on our conversations. So we don't care. We can talk on cell phones and relay them through international satellites that we have no control over. But those people take those things into consideration. Intelligence agencies like the CIA, like Mossad, like British MI5 or 6 or whatever they call it, they all have an interest. They will be present in the Gambia because they know Muslim leaders are gathering and there is a existential battle going on between Israel and Gaza where the Muslims have a stake in. So we want to go in and see what is happening. And while they are there, if they see any vulnerabilities where they can tap their phone, tap their communication so that they know what they're talking to their countries about, they will exploit that vulnerability to their own advantage. So how secure is the Gambia's internet lines? How secure is the Gambia's phone lines? That when the Iranian president calls home to talk to the Ayatollah, that CIA cannot listen to it. That's something they factor into. They are conscious of that. How much data are they going to be consuming when they're in the Gambia? How much drain is that going to be on the existing internet capacity in the Gambia? Imagine bin Salman talking to his people back home using the internet, the Iranian president doing the same thing, talking to his people in Iran, Erdogan doing the same thing, how much capacity is there for that? In addition to the government functions in the day that is happening in the Gambia and the daily internet users like us being on Facebook. Does the Gambia have that capacity? NAWEC is basically telling people, or at least, diverting all the electricity to that one location so that there will not be any power outages while depriving the citizens. We'll get into that too. So these are all the things that are factored into it, and the Gambia was not prepared for it. All we care about is, oh, we hosted a successful conference. Coming to the meeting at the conference center at the Kairaba Conference Center, and then going through, agenda item number 1, I invite the Chinese representative to come and speak. Thank you, Mr. Representative. Agenda item number 2, I invite the Sultan of Brunei to come and speak. Thank you, Mr. Sultan. At the end of the day, we gave them good food, they eat, and the entertainment was perfect. They go back to their hotels, they come the next day. That's the easiest part of any conference. Everything else surrounding it is the hard part, and the Gambia considered none of that. So that's why when you look at the attendees, and another thing, when there's an emergency for any of these delegates, are we 100%? We cannot even say that any of them can go to RVTH and get care that they need. They will have to be flown to Senegal. An emergency with all these, fat guzzling people that are eating all kinds of haram stuff, the potential for heart attack for them is way up there. If they have that, can there be any intervention in the Gambia to save their lives? No. Absolutely not. There's no equipment. So all these things are problems that they have to address. And saying, oh, we on social media coming here talking about this on patriotic because people will look at Gambia badly. These people send their own intelligence and logistic experts, security experts, intelligence experts, logistics experts to come to the Gambia or to any place that these people are going to make their assessments. Okay, because the Gambia is not an enemy territory, they're going to go visit the security chiefs. Okay, what do you have in place for our visiting president? What are the logistics? How are they going to travel from the airport to the hotel? Which hotel are they staying at? What are the vulnerabilities of this hotel in terms of security, in terms of communication? Who else is staying in that hotel? The Gambia government will open up 100% and give them everything. Why? Because nobody wants a visiting head of state in your country to suffer any mishap related to security. So they will give them 100% everything they need. This is our security measures. And if there's any gaps, those people will fill in. So when they come and say, oh, we have to have a security assessment, and they look at it, being the experts they are, they know, okay, point A is insecure and we cannot secure it. B is insecure, we cannot secure it. C is insecure, we cannot. Only D is a little bit stable, but we can back up there. Out of 10, 8 of them are, we cannot provide the security we need to provide, so we're not going to have our president come here. And they send that back. The president is the most powerful, but sometimes he doesn't have authority. The authority comes from junior officers say, for security reasons, you cannot go to this place. And he wouldn't go because his security is at stake. So did the Gambia government factor that into it? So those intelligence people come, they do not come here to look at social media. If anything, they will look at social media traffic, who is issuing threats against our country or against our leader. And then when they pick it up, they will tell the Gambian officers, hey, this person is issuing threats. We don't know who he is, but you guys need to. That's where the Gambian people will come in and say, okay, this guy is Nata, we know where he lives, we're going to go find him. Why are you issuing threats to this president? Arrest him. Security risk contained. That's the only thing they will look at social media for, nothing else. They have their own mechanisms in place for securing their leaders. They're not going to give that to the Gambia. Why do you think the president of the US travels with Air Force One and the Beast? They don't say, I'm going to the UK, I'm going to travel in the Queen's chariot. No, I'm going in the Beast. I mean, that's what the presidential limousine is called in America. That's for security reasons. They're not going to go to a very advanced country like the UK or even to Canada and, give that security aspect to the Canadian forces, even though they are well-trained, well-equipped and everything. That is something they're not going to risk. That's something they will take care of themselves 100%. We're here, we heard about the Mauritanian delegation having their laptops stolen. How did people even have access to where those people are staying to steal their laptops? So this is where the problem is. The advanced teams will make the decision based on their own assessments, not based on what I am saying on social media. But again, the entire focus of the Gambia government is to build that public image based on mere optics. Oh, we hosted this successful conference here. You know how Barrow likes to hijack everything for himself? Coalition, it was him. Jam out, it was him. Everything in that country, it was him. No credit to anybody, just him. And then his minions, like Ismail Assisa, will come out and start saying, he's the president, he's magnanimous, he's this, he's that. Up to the point of saying that the people who sponsored the OIC didn't contribute, but it was all Gambia. Only to retract that. It's all it is. We successfully hosted, 57 countries. How many people turned up? I'm not going to speculate, but I don't think there's up to 15 heads of state in a conference. And when I say head of state, I'm meaning sultans and emirs and kings and presidents. It's not up to 15. The ones I see are Mbalo, Sissoko, Madabio. I saw Jomai, mostly African leaders. So if there is up to 15, a great percentage of them are African leaders. They wouldn't mind because, you know, they understand the challenges and they'll be okay with it, but not these rich people who are spoiled. They're not going to come to the Gambia and say, oh yeah, we're going to a conference on behalf of Islam. They're not going to do that. They are too comfortable for that. So the entire focus was on building their image, which is why they went and did that road clearing. Make the citizens suffer so that the world will look at us and say, oh, Gambia is a nice place, when people are rotting inside. So the road clearing was part of that. The people's livelihoods were destroyed when they were doing that, and they don't care for it. Ibrahim Sallah couldn't even defend it, because you know we need to expand these roads. Like I said, 10 years in the making. We were not prepared until the very last minute, and we couldn't host it in 2019. Then we had an extension for 5 years. We still couldn't do it, and then all of a sudden, 1 year to the event, they start destroying people's properties. Even less than 1 year. And now they're talking about, oh, we cannot compensate them because the paperwork's not there. What stopped you from... They bought all those expensive luxury vehicles so that they can transport these kings who are, you know, used to high standards of living to their, from the airport to the meeting grounds, or from the hotel to the meeting ground, wherever they need to go, so that they can have them, you know, traveling in luxury. But when Jammeh bought all those luxury vehicles from the 2006 AU summit to his personal ones, why couldn't they save those and maintain them regularly without using them as government vehicles? The government doesn't need those kinds of luxury vehicles for what? Keep them somewhere, let them be well maintained. Every once in a while, turn the engine on, see if there's any damages that need fixing, fix it. When you have visitors coming, you can use them. Those are like Rolls Royces and Bentleys. Any leader can travel in there. If they don't want to, then that's their problem. But they have to go and rent vehicles from, I think, Mauritania or Senegal. And then Mohammed Jah had to buy some vehicles which are loans, because after the conference they have to pay it back somehow. So there was no preparation for it. That 40 million that they dispersed, now that looking back on it, I feel like they did that in time so that they can maintain a presence on social media, because they know that's where the most criticism is going to come from. Oh, Gambia didn't do this, Gambia didn't do that. So they can counter it, they can put out good images, nice images about the Gambia. Oh, we're hosting the OIC, the most important or largest organization after the United Nations. I think that's what they give those $40 million to. It's purposely for that. I'm speculating on that one. But they did that. Even 𝒂𝒄, I saw their letter, I was like bowing my head in shame. You know, it's like that guy when Mufti Menk came to the Gambia and he was full of so much praise from Menk. He was like, don't do that. Like, you know, you treat him like I'm a god. That's not Islamic. Basically, it was what he was telling me. That's what 𝒂𝒄 was doing. Just to impress on the president that we're doing what we can. So we're going to shut the power to every compound, every home around that area, and, you know, funnel every capacity we have to the conference center and the hotel so that there's no power outage. So I don't know why people are worried about on social media making our commentary when all these things are happening. Before you worry about us also, Senegal's RTS or RTS, their national broadcaster, we saw before the conference started, they sent in like 3 or 4 OB vans to the Gambia. You think you're going to shut those people up? Like I said at the beginning too, these are significant world leaders when it comes to global geopolitics. They get followed around by their own media. Like wherever the president goes, there's a suite in Air Force One for the press. Wherever he goes, they go with the press. So we expect the same for the president of Turkey. We expect the same for the president of Iran. But not only that, global news outlets like the BBC, you know, DW, CNN, wherever these leaders are, they want to be close so they can ask them certain questions. So those people are going to descend on the Gambia. They're not just going to rely on Gambian news outlets, just like Senegal is not. Senegal knows they speak the same language, but they cannot rely on GRTS. I tuned into GRTS thing. For some minutes, I couldn't hear a thing. There was no volume. There was no audio. Isn't that an embarrassment before you give 40 million to private individuals to be your social media gurus? Why don't you give it to the national broadcaster? But RTS sending their own people. You think those people are not going to drive around Gambia and see stuff and then report about it? They are going to. Who's going to stop them? So you open your country to journalists. These people come with their own eyes and ears, and they're going to be observing. So why are you worried about us? Calling us jealous. I don't know why I'm going to be jealous of people who are supposed to do their job and are not doing it. So essentially what that is happening, when I saw that, it's like, you know how you play with your child and they say, let's play hide and seek. Oh, I have a magic trick. I can be invisible. Oh, okay. You can be invisible. Yeah. And then they close their eyes and the dad is like, ooh, where is he? I can't find him. Where is he? And then he opens his eyes and like, I'm here. To that child, when he closes his eyes, he's invisible. Nobody can see him, even if he's sitting right in front of you. And then when he opens his eyes, yeah, I'm here. And then, oh, I see you now. That's just going into the child's world, playing with him, making him feel like, oh yeah, I just did a magic trick on my dad. It's the same thing. Gambians say, oh, ignore all these things until the conference is over, and then nobody will see what is happening until they are gone. Like, those people are blind. Some of these journalists, let's say, for example, Barclay Rice, when he came to the Gambia to write his book, Improbable Nation, I didn't say that word right, but it will kill me for that. When he came to author his book, he didn't just stay in Banjo. He went into communities, talking to people. The people he interviewed, if you read his book, you'll be like, why would he even go to this place? That's how you get a feel of the society, how you get a feel of what is going on. You think they're going to, those journalists are going to go interview those women in the market and they're not going to tell them that they destroyed our stalls? You cannot put a lid on information. So I don't know why you focus on us on social media, but it's just, you know, like they say, to create violence. I don't know where that word came from, but I like it. So, in conclusion, this whole thing is complete, utter failure. Simple. Like I said, the last part of everything leading up to the summit, the last part of it is hosting, going through the agenda of the meeting at the venue of the meeting, which is the 𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒏 Jawara Conference Center, being there and then calling on the attendees or the speakers or the delegates or whatever you want to call them for them to come and give their remarks. And when they are done, notating everything, having good translation services while it is going on, making sure the lighting is perfect and stays stable, making sure the PA system is perfect. All those things, that's the last line in hosting a successful conference. Everything else leading up to it is the major event. So everything leading up to it is what we need to take care of. And then the presidents and their dignitaries, they show up at the conference center, go through the day's agenda. When they are done, security makes sure they are escorted to their various residences for them to stay, and they have that security. Come back the next day, go through the day's agendas. Again, security, they don't get food poisoning, they don't get water or banjul belly or anything like that. When they are done, all those things are the most important. The meeting itself is like a few hours in the day. But when they are there 24, 48 hours, staying in your country, that's what you need to take care of. We have proven that we cannot host them in our country so they can stay in Senegal. Those who were able to be hosted in our country, some of them suffered theft from petty thieves, like the Mauritanian delegation. Who knows what's on their laptops because they are state actors. Who knows what's on their cell phones? So we failed at that. We failed at accommodating some of the dignitaries who could have come, but they have no way of accommodating their flight crew or their plane at the airport because there was no facility there for the plane to wait for them while they do the conference. We lost them. There is no internet security for them to communicate with their, countries back home or their intelligence agencies or whoever they need to communicate with. Because why? Our internet is not reliable. Our telephones are not reliable. So security in all those aspects is gone. All they care about is offering security for the person. I don't know how they call it in security terms. I'm not a security expert, but even I can see those things. So all these years when we are doing criticisms, when we're saying, for example, we need adequate, well-constructed roads. Mane went on the coffee time with Peter Gomez. He went on coffee time with Peter Gomez and he was telling Ibrahim Asila on the quality of the roads. Imagine if they build quality roads. Do you think we'll be scrambling now to, get those roads constructed? They would have been there already. Nobody was going to say, oh, Singapore is going to host the next summit and then they're worried about roads in Singapore. Nobody's going to be worried about that. Nobody's going to be worried about the hotels in Singapore. Nobody's going to be worried about the electricity in Singapore. They would already be there. So when we talk about development, these are the things we talk about. Let it be there. When people come, they will know it's there. That was our disadvantage in 2003 when they wanted to host it and Senegal said Gambia doesn't have roads. They don't have an airport. They don't have this and that. So they were listing all these things that made the Gambia unconducive. And, you know, it hurts, but that's what a good neighbor does. You know, I don't think my neighbor can host this. If you want to go, you can go, but they're not going to be able to host it. You know, Senegal did us a favor in that. That would have been an embarrassment. I know with Jammeh, he can pull it off because he's a one-man show. Whatever he wants, is, you know, what happens. So when we complain about the inadequate healthcare and women dying in hospitals when, you know, minor infections cannot be treated, this is one incident that we can look at. If RVTH was up to standard, where, say, for example, Mohammed bin Salman comes and he has a health emergency, he would not have second thoughts about going to RVTH or Edward Francis Teaching Hospital to be treated. Nobody in their right mind who is subject or who witnesses a different hospital somewhere else in the world, in the developed world, or even in the Middle East, will want to go to the Edward Francis Teaching Hospital to get treatment. They will say, fly me out of here right now. Imagine if the government has taken or made that a priority. But our ministers, even our permanent secretaries, even our directors, they will not go to RVTH. They would rather fly out to Senegal to go get treatment there. So imagine if we had a functioning hospital. So it's not always opposition. These things are important. When you want to host events like this, these things are important. You're part of the global community. And I'm sure the Gambia will not bid the next OIC conference and get it, at least not for 50 years. It's a 57-member country, so other countries will be given priority anyway. It's not like the Gambia was such a successful event that we're going to go there again. It's not going to happen. Imagine if NAWEC was not completely doing their load shedding every 5 minutes in the country. If we have stable enough electricity. In fact, that's why investors get demotivated to come to the Gambia. Because you need that. You don't want constant interruption to your, you know, services or to your opportunities that you have in the country. You cannot execute them because there's no reliable electricity. So these are the things that they need to pay attention to. So basically, in conclusion, the bottom line is that our government is more interested, based on all the foregoing, they are more interested in what image is projected of them. And, you know, nobody can stop them. At the end of this, they will come and say, oh, we hosted a successful conference. Their definition of success and your definition of success are completely different. If the US president wants to come to the Gambia, the American embassy will tell him no. There's no security. Why? Because China has a presence in the Gambia, Iran has a presence in the Gambia, Russia has a presence in the Gambia. So if you're going to come, they could send their intelligence agencies and we don't know how we can secure you. You'll be vulnerable when you're there. If Air Force One was to park at the Banjul International Airport, no other plane will come because there's no room for them. It's not like you can shut off one area of the airport and the planes will be diverted somewhere. To them, anything that comes near Air Force One is a security threat, so they're not going to allow it. So these are the things that the government needs to consider. This is a kind of aha moment. This is why we talk. This is why we say things need to be better than what they are. It's not always opposition talking. That's our job. If we don't talk, what are we going to do? So when we mention these things, it's just to make sure the country gets better so we can all be proud of it, and then we wouldn't have to be scrambling every last minute to try to host a conference. All those people telling you, oh, the conference, don't talk about it, don't wait until the conference is over. You are not going to hear them say a beep about it. That's it. They're just going to be bragging and showing their photos. Oh, we did a successful conference. You know, we hosted this president, that president, when all those who matter. There's no more significant time than now for the Gambia or for the Islamic conference to come together and map out ways of dealing with what is going on in the Middle East. This would grab all their attention. How many of them gathered in Egypt just to talk about that ceasefire thing there? But then the conference of Islamic heads of state, you only have, what, 5 out of 50 something? And then we think that's a success. Yeah, we can fool ourselves that it's successful, but in the eyes of the world, that's the conference itself going through the day's agenda. That's the last item on any successful event being hosted anywhere. So If you guys want to talk about something that after the facts we can talk about it, let's go to talk about the stadium, because there'll be another CAF opportunity for us to host and we are not prepared for it. The same thing, the OIC will keep happening, every 3 years. And I'm sure 100% that the Gambia cannot bid and win it again, at least for another 50 years, barring some miracle, which I don't think we're going to have. So, let's hope for the best for the next conferences. But this one, well, the day's agenda went according to plan. It was flashy and everything, but everything else leading up to it was a complete disaster, complete failure. Security was not adequate, so some leaders didn't show up. Convenience was sacrificed, so some leaders didn't show up. The distance between which is part of convenience, between the meeting venue and their accommodation was too far. They were just going to waste too much time just to get to a conference. It was not worth it. Go back and see the one that was hosted by Saudi Arabia and how many heads of state went there. Be on the lookout for the next one that is going to be hosted. I don't know which country is going to host it, and see how many heads of state are going to go there. That's when you can assess to see if the Gambia's one was successful or not, depending on the number of people who came to that conference. So this is why we speak, and we're going to keep speaking until things start getting better in that country. Apart from the fact that everything is decentralized, centralized in one area, the rest of the country doesn't see anything. Instead of going to buy all those luxury vehicles for a 2-day event, when the farmers wanted ask the president for help, what did they do? They bought horses and, in fact, donkeys and gave it to them. But immediately, 𝒐𝒐𝒖𝒕𝒖𝒃𝒆, as they would say, they went and bought millions and spent millions of dollars buying luxury vehicles to accommodate people for 2 days, most of whom didn't even show up. And after that, what is going to happen to those vehicles? They couldn't even invest in buying, agricultural equipment for the farmers. They just buy donkeys for them, which you can go to any market and buy it. A few $100s or $1,000. We're constantly watching them fail and fail and fail and fail, and people are telling us, "Oh, let's give them, the chance to go through this conference, and then we can talk about it." What is the essence of that? What you need to talk about, you're not talking about until the whole thing is over now, and then we say, let's assess. So that Barrow can say, oh, that's just their opinion, because that's what he says about the audit report. When they were wasting the money, nobody was saying anything. When the auditor came and said, oh, this thing was wasted and this thing is unaccounted for, but they say, oh, that's my opinion. We move on. That's the Gambia for you. Allah Barak.